I couldn't make the echoes bounce around this room, chasing shadows in the gloom.
Hello, everyone. It's been a little bit, but welcome back to another episode of Behind Enemy Lines Hockey Podcast. As always, I'm joined by my good friend and fellow country mate transplanted, Steve.
Well, it's good to be back, and it's been a hot minute, and there's a lot that has gone on or not gone on, and we'll dive into some of these topics. But the summer it's busy. We're all busy. You've been to Vegas, done some refereeing out there, and for those not keeping score at home, I'm relocating one more time. So we've all been busy. I'm going to take this show back on the road to the desert.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Vegas, by the way, was a really good trip. 5 kids got signed, actually. Three, I think, to Calgary and a couple NCAA. Don't know all the details, but that's my understanding. 5 kids got signed, so it was pretty good. Um,
Nice.
we're going to jump right into trivia, and I think, as you told me, there's going to be a nice surprise one today.
Yeah, this one's a little bit of we normally do trivia that's relevant and off the cuff. So I'm going to lighten it up. I'm going to steal a parody of something I came across the interwebs today. And because this is a behind enemy lines, and we like to poke fun of all our good friends in the 416 area code. I'll give a little bit of a scenario, and we can think about it and come up with the correct answer. And there's only one at the end of the episode. So more of a play on humor for jokes, but here it goes. You've committed a very bad crime. You know you're going to jail. It's inevitable and for a long time. You get to court and the judge says to you, you can either serve 20 years or until the Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup. What sentence do you pick?
Oh. Well, I know which one I'm picking, but I guess we'll have to wait and see at the end. Okay. So with that, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think some people are going to be for a long haul. What we're going to do is we're going to run down, try to catch up of everything that we've sort of slacked off on over the last 2 or 3 months and look a little bit ahead into the future. What we should start with is, I guess the biggest news off season wise so far would be the draft as far as Montreal is concerned. Just you want to touch a little bit. I don't think we need to go deep into all that. I just want to touch a little bit on the Gleb Pugaevsky or however you Puga, but he's already getting the nickname of Baba Yaga, which is the John Wick boogeyman thing. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, going into the draft, there was all kinds of conversation of what we were going to do, what we weren't going to do, what we've done in years past. And, as it turns out, we didn't make a trade. We didn't move up in the draft. We drafted 28th. We moved up a few spots, just prior to because we decided to draft the Russian mobster. And, it kind of comes out of nowhere because it's not a name that people released. Nobody from the Montreal camp said, "Hey, this guy's our target guy," and then all of a sudden, everybody runs to the Google to find out where this kid is, what he's done, and the videos of this kid are absolutely insane because he has no fear.
Mhm.
And then, subsequent a day later, they're talking about, he's going to rip the head off of Tom Wilson, and like the kid's got a character to him, and that's part of why the Montreal Canadiens drafted him. He brings an element that we don't have. We're in no rush to rush him here.
Yeah.
And he's going to be another unicorn where if he plays his way in and plays that style once he matures a little bit, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
So, as much as I didn't know tons about him, I'm all in.
Yeah. And I think this is obviously a Bobrovsky pick all the way with the Russian connection and the whole familiarity because he's really the only guy with all the travel restrictions. He can get over there and see these guys all he wants, where a lot of the other NHL teams don't have scouts that can go or want to go or whatever reason. So it's almost like, Montreal's got first pick at the fruit and I always find every year in the draft, Kent Hughes seems to do two things, which he didn't do this year. He typically makes a splash with a trade of some kind or whatever. but he always manages to come up with a pick somehow at a left field that people are saying, well, why didn't we get this guy? It was Zorowski last year. This year, like you said, people went and Googled who this guy is, and they're like, well, how come he wasn't on our radar? Why didn't we know about him?
Yeah, yeah, and because he plays a very edgy game. I mean, I've seen a few of the hits, and some of them look like they're charging penalties in the North American game.
Yeah.
But he's not afraid to throw his weight around literally because he launches himself into some people,
Mhm.
and that will be curbed a little bit at the NHL level because the game is policed and called differently by the stripes. But I gotta love the kid's moxie, and I like the character. I like the fact that he's willing to say he'll take on Tom Wilson. It might be a stretch for him. He might drink through a straw for a couple of weeks after, but I give the kid all the credit in the world for having the moxie to put himself front and center. And
Yeah.
and by all accounts, he's not going to back down.
Yeah. Fear doesn't seem to be a problem for him.
I think yes, at no point is that part of his repertoire.
Yeah. Uh, so let's go quickly on to our next one. Let's just get a quick prospect update. What do you think's happening? What do you like seeing? What are you disappointed at?
Well, so we sit on in many ways a glut of prospects that are destined for good things, right? We signed Jakub Dobish to a 3-year deal at 5.3 million. Some people think it's an overpay. Some people think it's an underpay. Why did we sign him to only 5.3 million, and why did we only sign him to a 3-year deal? It's because of our prospect pool, and our number one prospect at this point is Jacob Fowler.
Mm-hmm.
You can't lock up one guy, Dobish, to 8 years, $8 million. And then the other guy comes in and steals his spot and wants that time and that money.
Mm-hmm.
So Hughes and Gordon have kind of bridged themselves. And, we seem to have a glut of other goalies throughout the system as well. So we've given Dobish, after his minor entry level deal, we've given him respectable money.
Yeah,
That's
he's
right
still
in
got
the
one more
range.
year on that though. He's
Yeah,
still got
so-
one more year on his ELC. So
Yeah. He signed a 2-year, 1.5 per year, whatever it was. So, we're in a good spot. So I'm looking forward to, the double-headed Jake the Snake conundrum that we may have,
yeah.
because both show that with, a good team in front of them, they can both be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
The other two prospects that obviously are people are talking about it is Zorowski, because he came over and participated in the rookie camp right after the draft, and Michael Hage. And Hage has put on 20 pounds. He looked like a man skating with boys at the rookie camp. And he's still slated to go back to Michigan. But, there is some minor rumblings that he could up and sign a deal before the season starts. Now, if I'm a betting man, I say it's 20% chance we get him, 80% he goes back to Michigan. He still has unfinished business, and his brother's going there. So I don't think the tables are going to tip too much. Maybe he skates in the Michigan camp and says, you know what, this just isn't for me.
Mhm.
Like I'm sorry, but I'm way better than this now, and I need to elevate my career. And he has a change of heart.
Mhm.
It's possible. I'm not banking on it, but the future is bright because he was such a stud at camp.
Yeah.
But why didn't we make a trade? Because those two guys are obviously going to be the first two guys that teams are asking for.
Yeah.
Nobody said, hey, boy, do I ever deal for you, but it has to start with Kirby Dach.
Yeah.
Nobody said that.
Yeah.
Those aren't words that even happen on EA Sports trades.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Nintendo's going to allow that.
Maybe the Wii.
Yeah.
Because you might Wii on the deal.
Yeah.
But if you've got an asset that hasn't been an impact, other teams want that asset as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hughes and Gordon have done what they can, asset management, and at this point, asset protection, and managed to keep all three of them for now. Doesn't mean that won't change, but it's nice to know that between Zorowski and Hage up front, Fowler and net, we still have Engstrom and Reinbacher, who are slated to be NHL defensemen, on the back. So we've got 5 guys that could step in and play.
Yeah.
If it's not for us, it will be elsewhere. But my money's on the prominent 3 we talked about. They're all going to be Montreal Canadiens at some point.
Yeah. Which, let's go right down that rabbit hole and keep going to the next one. who may have an outside chance or a good chance of cracking the roster this year. I see like the whole Hage and Zorowski, we understand their situations with the school and the Russia thing and all. I get all that. But you've got Owen Beck, who I think, as good a player as he is, I think his window is slipping away. I think you've got Engstrom. I think Engstrom could start anytime, really, and Reinbacher, same thing. But do we have the room? What do you see happening?
If it, when you look at the prospects, I know the first player everybody's going to say you didn't talk about Florian Jacki.
Mhm.
As much as I love the Jacki brothers, we just don't have room for Florian yet. Do I see him playing more time up in Montreal? Yeah, I could see him playing opening night against Toronto again. I could see that happening. A little bit of energy, a little bit of retribution. Toronto thinks that because they got Gavin McKenna and whatever else that they're winning the Stanley Cup. Hence the prison sentence kind of pun.
Mhm. Oh, the
But
parade's back on. I hear it every
uh,
day. The parade is
yeah,
back on.
yeah, and you signed Bobrovsky to 37 trillion rubles or some
Yeah.
stupid contract, whatever they gave him. Um, you know, so I see some guys get, but Owen Beck has to be the guy that takes a step.
Yeah.
He is the guy of the forwards in Laval that is probably NHL ready, who's got more taste of it than anybody else. And I think if we're giving a chance to somebody, even as a 13th forward, it's going to be him.
Mhm.
Because if not, you're going to move him. So you're going to do an evaluation and keep him. He's going to play some games, and you're going to say, yeah, he's in or he's not in.
Mhm.
And I just don't see tons of room with the contracts that we have. Now, again, is there a deal happening? Is Engstrom or Reinbacher going to make the lineup? I just can't see it unless we don't sign Arbor because he's the only guy in the back end that's not signed. So if he doesn't get signed, one of them could be there.
Mhm.
But I just don't think we have tons of space yet. And I think there's probably still a move that could happen, which then would be, a precursor to a few bodies moving one way to get somebody in to make room for others. So, something's going to happen somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Seems we're going down this road. Uh, the deals and no deals. I know you and I have both heard it from certain individuals about, why are deals not made, and it sort of all ties together. Like we talked offline. No deal on any other team wants isn't going to start with Hager Zorowski's name mentioned, and Kent Hughes is going to tell him to kick rocks because it's not happening. So for, the fan to say, oh, Kent Hughes didn't make a deal, that's bullshit, whatever else. Well, there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And I would say, I speculate that's what it is. All these guys, they want the Zorowskis, they want the Hages, they don't want the Kirby Docs, they don't want the other guy. So if the other teams aren't willing to negotiate or dance, there's really nothing Kent Hughes can do other than
No,
trade away Hage and then hear the fans rip him apart after for doing it.
look, we've been down this road, right? And people seem to forget we took a chance on a guy who had a great junior career. Now, mind you, he played on a line with Nathan McKinnon
Mm-hmm.
and had all kinds of upside, was drafted early. He was a top 5 pick. And we traded a guy who was drafted ninth, and the deal didn't work out. So if people haven't figured out who is who, that was the Sergachev to Tampa for Drouin
Mm-hmm.
deal. And we lost that one. And I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't no general manager wins every trade because I'm sure if you ask the Vegas Golden Knights, how did the Max patio furniture deal for Nick Suzuki work out? That's one they would kick themselves on. Every general manager loses a deal. But with the amount of upside at Hage and Zorowski, we weren't giving them away.
Mm-hmm.
And if they wanted to be in a package, the return of assets that had to come back was going to be monumental. And again, you're not giving up used parts that are long past expiry date and
Yeah.
getting game changing, impact players that are 25 years old. That doesn't happen. And we were lucky. We did make an off-season move. We made a bunch of them for players in Laval, but let's go back to the one player that we did ship out.
Mm-hmm.
Long time career in Montreal, 14 years. People can say that we did him dirty and we didn't give him his just desserts and he didn't have his swan song and his farewell. tour like, some guys would, but we did trade Brendan Gallagher. I'm sorry to see him go. He was a great ambassador for the team, often the hardest working guy on the ice, both teams combined, more nights than not. But at the end of the day, we didn't have room for him. And in order to move him along to make him happy, we had to retain salary. So we weren't getting back a Porter Martone from Philly for Brendan Gallagher. That deal doesn't exist. So, we moved Gallagher. We eat 50% of his salary for 1 year, so we're on the hook for $3 million. Mm-hmm. That move is still cheaper than buying him out, where it hits the cap for 2 more years. Mm-hmm. So, that's a deal that did get made. And, I like him as an individual. Met him when I lived in Phoenix the first time outside the arena. And he gave a buddy and I 25 minutes of his time, sat there in the scorching heat in a suit, and he had nothing but good things to say. And, I'll forever respect him. And he's going to go down as one of my favorite players. But we all know at the end of the day, you have to make room for young kids. We have a bunch of them coming, and he just lost the unlucky lottery spot.
Yeah, and he knows it too. He's not in denial. I don't think he, I wouldn't say he's not bitter. I mean, I think he would have wished for, and again, I'm just speculating. We're not in his head. We don't really know, but I would speculate he would have liked to have a little bit better of an ending, like you say. Maybe get a few of those playoff games in, but he knows his time. His days were numbered. Right.
He was a rookie at 1.2 and took some other veteran's job. And that's
exactly. Yeah.
The evolution of the game. And, when it works out, you're like, yes, that was the right move. But at some point, it's the right move to bring another guy in. Yeah. And you can call it what you want. But I'm sorry, folks, but I'll take my chances for production alone with Kirby Dach at this point. That doesn't go a long way over what Brendan Gallagher can offer. The heart is one thing, but at some point, Hart doesn't score goals.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier, too, that you touched on a little bit. I'd like to go a little bit deeper in about a lot of the minor league moves. I know we sort of had very similar but sort of an opposite side discussion on this earlier. I see the moves as a setup, basically. You know what I mean? Like moving chess pieces around the board, to make that big move. And a lot of these minor league moves are securing the Laval team, making roster down there solid, things like that. But I just see it that you can't make a move, like you can't package together 3 or 4 players and send them somewhere else for one and then leave a void in Laval where nobody's going to play. You have to fill them spots.
I mean, I've called Kent Hughes and told him that I'm available on standby if Laval needs a player, but my phone hasn't rang. So that should tell you what they're trying to do, right? Like they're not looking for parts. They're looking for players.
Yeah.
And you're right. You accrue assets. If you look right now, Laval has 9 defensemen on their AHL roster.
Yeah.
Well, most teams only dress 6 or 7. What are we doing with the other 2?
Yeah.
One of them could end up in with the big club, right? As an 8th defenseman. It's possible. But, you accrue all these guys with AHL experience that are going to be journeymen. Some of them will never, ever play in the NHL, but you got to secure a better bridge of talent, a better core of players for a more competitive team so that if you bring a guy in, like a Zarovsky at the end of the year, and you don't want to put him on your playoff roster, he goes and plays in Laval and can be productive because I'm not his left winger. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you got to really reevaluate what's going on. And you've got to give a balance across the organization. Guys come back from injury and need to rehab. They have to have talent to play with. Yeah. So, it's not for loss. And again, part of those could be pieces going the other way too. So they might be with us now, but maybe not for long.
Yeah. I speculate. I speculate there's a couple deals. I don't want to say ready to be signed. Maybe, in the back pocket where Kent Hughes, maybe just, they've kind of worked out a deal or a team has made an offer for something. And Kent Hughes is maybe trying to see what else is out there to try, you know what I mean? But maybe he could call that team and say, okay, you know what? Let's make that deal. Not the ideal trade that he would want to make, but I think there might be a couple things kind of put on the back burner maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, I was kind of hoping the addition by not subtraction rule was going to be, you want to sign free agents that cost you nothing, but you don't want to sign free agents that cost you everything because then your cap's stuck.
Mhm.
We talked briefly going into this. We're in the neighborhood of $9.5 million in cap space right now, so we could take on a $7 million
Yeah.
player and not be over the cap, without sending a prominent player another way. And by prominent, even the Kirby Doc at 3.6 million, because newsflash, he just signed for that today, 1 year, 3.6,
Mhm.
avoids arbitration. But you don't want to, you want to be in that position where if you take on a $7 million guy and send a $3 million guy, you only end up 4 million, but we've got 9.5, so we still have a 5 million. You have the numbers work and they still give flexibility. So
Yeah.
the management team has done a good job securing both term and annual value, to give us flexibility. But are we done? I don't think so. I mean, training camp is still 6 weeks away. I still see that there could be a move done. There are still general managers. I mean, who knows? Dylan Larkin is not coming to Montreal. I don't think for a second if anyone's holding on to, well, he's out there. Jason Robertson may be an intriguing one because he ends up at arbitration. Could he be traded before July 25th when that's his arbitration date? That's possible. But again, you trade for him, he's going to want the 13 to 15 million. We only have 9. You got to find a way to get rid of 6 million. It's not quite that easy.
Yeah. And I don't think I think part of it is Montreal's not going for them big contract players. I don't see them going for the 13, 14 million because it's going to just blow up the whole salary structure. And I don't think they want to do that. And I don't think it's fair to the guys, including Dobesh now, who have taken, the, as they say, hometown discount or team friendly discount because they got, they're all best buddies. They get along. They want to play together, win together. And then they go offer, an outside stranger an exorbitant amount of money. I think that's just a kick in the gut to them.
Right. I mean, you look at a guy like Nick Robertson. Okay, great. He scored 40 goals. Wonderful. He's done that 3 or 4 times. Wonderbar. Love it. But Caulfield scored 50. Okay,
Mhm.
once. But I would rather have Suzuki and Slavkovsky for 15.7 than Robertson for 15.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that's why some of these decisions are being made. It's to protect the term, because if one guy goes down, we can absorb another guy. If Dallas loses that guy at 15 million, you don't have a guy in the minors that's a 15. Nobody has that guy in the minors,
Yeah.
but you have to be able to have flexibility to go out and replace him.
Mhm.
Yes, he goes on LTIR, but what happens when he comes back? Then you're forced to make 1, 2, 3 more moves. So, teams don't want to get pigeonholed into that scenario. And I think that's the reason why, deal or no deal, there's been no deals,
Mhm.
because we don't want to be on the losing end of some of these things.
Yeah. And like we've said before, sometimes the best deal is the one you never made, right?
Right. And I still think there's one deal that'll happen. It hasn't been announced yet. And this is not a surprise by anybody. I still think Carey Price signs a 1 day contract prior to the start of the year so he can retire half.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. So it's not breaking the bank. In my opinion, it's an obvious decision. But like, there are things that are non-impactful. That's impactful for a different reason,
Yeah.
because that's the just desserts he deserves.
Yeah.
And remember, folks, we moved Carey Price along, and we didn't have to overpay to do it.
Yeah.
These guys in the management team aren't buying the farm. We lost out on Anthony Mantha. He was a guy I wanted, but not at 4.75 million. He's had one good year. Again, we talk about the development of prospects. You take him and put him in for 2 years at that kind of money. What if he falls down to the fourth line? We're back into Kirby Doc 2.0, and everybody's all up in arms about him. We don't need 2 of them.
Yeah. And speaking of which, Kirby Doc signed. I don't know
Yeah,
if we brought that up yet or not. What do you get? 3.6?
3.6. By the NHLPA, he had to be qualified at 4 million
Mm-hmm.
if it went to arbitration. Now, part of his 4 million at arbitration was Montreal was offering less than that, but Montreal was trying to get a two-way deal out of him, believe it or not.
I heard
So
that. Yeah.
if he went to the minors, it'd be less than the 4 million. He didn't want that clearly, and if I was him, I wouldn't want it either.
Yeah.
So he came to a peaceful resolution of 1 year, 3.6. So it's up from his 3.2 last year. The 400,000, who cares? You know,
And then
the salary cap went up 5 million, and we're worried about him $400,000.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. It's almost the same money as far as I'm concerned.
And then
it's only 1 year.
Yeah. But then does he not become UFA then? Do we know?
I don't know if he's a UFA next year or not. He may get into that scenario.
According to Puckpedia, next year he's a UFA.
Yeah. So,
which to me, like, I don't care because I would have let him walk this year, but that's just me. What do I know?
Yeah. And, you know, he's not at this point, he's proven to be more hurt than he is valuable. Which, you know, I guess keeping the team doctor skills up to par is a great thing. You know, and we know we're cycling medical bandages and equipment, so we know that's all in great working order. I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, you know, if he has to walk for free, he walks for free. But, you know, at 3.6, maybe he's a guy that goes somewhere else and then they have the first negotiating rights with him. So, you know, there's reasons why we've done certain things, and that's another one.
Well, I just did the quick math there while you were talking. 3.6 million divided by 15 games works out to $240,000 a game, which is what I figure he's going to get on this contract. So good for him.
Yeah. And that's less than Leo Carlson's making per game. So it's a deal.
I don't even want to get into that because that's just a whole nother can of worms. That's nuts. I think the biggest news today, obviously, is we're sitting here July 16th. A few hours ago, the NHL released their full schedule. So we know all the home openers, all the travels, all the details. What do you want to talk about first with that? Because there's a lot we can discuss.
Yeah, so let's just remind everybody, the 7 people that are listening live and at home, we have increased. We're 84 games, not 82 games.
Yeah.
With that, the NHLPA and the owners came to an agreement that we would not wait until like October the 8th to start the season. The season actually starts on the 29th now of September. So the season
didn't they reduce? Sorry, I don't. But now there's only like two. Is it 2 preseason games now?
It's up to the teams. They have to play a minimum of 2. I think most of them are playing 4 to 6.
Okay.
Preseason games.
Yeah, but I know that got cut back though as part of the.
Yeah. That was part because the owners are saying like these guys now come into shape. They're not like Guy Lafleur smoking 2 packs on the bench. These guys come in. They've already been on the ice. They're already in great shape, and God rest his soul, Mr. Lafleur. Sorry, but you know you come in a little bit more game ready. They only need a couple of games. Most of the preseason games, the Stars aren't playing, so they just want to jump into it and make it meaningful right from day one. So the season's bumped up a bit. The season actually ends a little bit earlier as well because I think the NHL would not like to play into the middle of June. I think they would like a little bit more of a break. Why? Why is that important? Well, if you look at dates of subsequent events and things that are tied to the NHL, the Memorial Cup goes at a certain time as well. And you know, that's a big junior tournament. Scouts love to be at that because you get the best of the best junior kids. They do a pre-draft thing there where all these kids are brought in. They tie it all in. When the NHL season is going so late, there's scouts that can't be at that stuff. So, you know, how many players are available between the 4 teams that are at the Memorial Cup? It doesn't matter. That's a networking event for those people.
Yeah.
They are there, you know, dotting I's and crossing T's, shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, there's a little bit more going on than just the, you know, is there one guy available in this game that's not signed yet?
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's important. So, you know, the NHL is trying to make sure that they can get a break between Game 7 of what might be the Stanley Cup final. The Memorial Cup is all tied into that, but then they can prepare for the draft and you know,
because that happened pretty quickly this year, did it not? Like it was like within a week or 10 days, something like that.
Yeah. And it becomes a disadvantage to the last 4 teams because once teams are eliminated, they can make trades. They just can't involve the teams that are still playing.
Yeah. And then they got all kinds of time to concentrate on everything but
Yeah.
the actual game, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So again, so those are some of the things that have changed. I mean, so we can talk about home opener or season opener. You already touched base. We September 29th, we are playing the dreaded Make Me Laughs,
yeah,
which seems to be an NHL staple. They seem to want to play us the first game against each other. Okay, works for me.
yeah.
Got to play
It's
them 4 times.
exciting. Whether the Leafs are on top and Montreal's on the bottom or vice versa, it is exciting, and I honestly think that's the way it should be. Whether it's Toronto at Montreal or Montreal at Toronto, that should be the season opener.
As far as I'm concerned, and I'm with you, we want to grow the game. We want to breed excitement from day one. It should almost be rivalry week, the first week of the
Yes.
NHL.
Yeah.
Calgary and Edmonton should be playing.
Mhm.
Put Seattle, Vancouver, make them a rivalry. Like Vegas should be playing LA or LA, Anaheim. Like you got to do geographic things, right? The Red Wings and the Rangers, the Bruins and the Sabres. You
Mhm.
got to get some of these things where teams are jacked on game one.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in Buffalo wants to see Anaheim on game one. Like, I'm sorry, but no disrespect for those two
Yeah.
organizations, but they don't have a history with each other, right?
Yeah.
Columbus doesn't want to play Seattle in game one. They want to play Pittsburgh or Philly. They want to play a division
Yeah.
rival, right? So I think the NHL should get back to that because I think for the first 2 or 3 games, it's just going to get the season kicking
Yeah.
because
But
nobody get
you start up here instead of, if you start up here and you can maintain that momentum, that does better for your TV ratings, ticket sales, jerseys, all that other stuff. So it just makes sense.
it all carries over into the money,
Yeah.
right? And that's I think where it has to be. I know there's other factors that go into that travel and who opens on the road, who opens at home, where do you go from there? But they can make it work.
Yeah.
You know,
So we've got Montreal at Toronto on the 29th. Our home opener is October 6th versus Carolina.
so we kick off 2 games of importance, one big rivalry, and then we welcome the Stanley Cup champs back into our building.
Yeah. Try
You
to get a
know,
little red because they beat us up pretty bad in that series, I think.
yeah. Yeah. So those are the first 2 big ones. Just for impact, the home opener and the season opener. Let's not lose fact that on Sunday, October the 25th, we have the Heritage Classic game outdoor in Winnipeg. That's on a Sunday. So, that's early. I mean, I think they get ice on the ground in Winnipeg in like July. So they're probably already frozen there right now.
Yeah.
Those poor Winnitards, they just don't catch a break anyway.
Yeah. I've
Um,
been in Winnipeg in the summer, and I'm not sure they know what summer is.
yeah, they have 2 seasons there: snowmobiling and bad snowmobiling
Yeah.
in Winnipeg.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
so as far as the schedule goes, I know we talked about it. Um, back to backs. What did we say? There's 10 back to backs this year?
10 back-to-backs, one in October, one in November, 3 in December, 2 in January, 1 in February, 2 in March.
Yeah. So
So
there's 10 Fowler games there.
yeah, 10 Fowler games, yeah.
Yeah.
And you bit my tongue when we talked about this offline. I hope at that point there's 0 Monty games in
Yeah.
there. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the one thing that has changed in the last 2 years is the 3 goalie system is becoming more and more important and utilized differently. I think you're going to see more teams having a third goalie in the AHL that does not need waivers, can come up and play and go right back.
Yeah.
So that you can say to said starter in Laval, because that's our system, you're going to play 40 games in Laval, but we're going to squeeze you into 7 in the AHL as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's really enticing for some guys, right? And then, if you have back-to-backs or 3 games in 5 nights, you can give all the guys a bit of a rest.
And
You don't
we
care if
have
you get
we have a couple of them too. I was noticing the schedule. There's some pretty good runs where there's a few games clumped together, 3 games, 5 nights, or 6 or 7 games in a 2-week period. It's going to be a tough go this year, I think.
I will go to the Bell Center personally and buy all the coffee a week ahead of time so they can send Monty to Costa Rica to make sure they're stocked up so we don't get the urge to play them.
And then revoke his passport when he gets there.
You call ahead.
Yeah.
We
So
also have a stretch in February from the 4th to the 12th, 8 days, no games.
mhm,
That might be the All-Star break. It just doesn't show up on the schedule. It could be in and around that time.
mhm.
So
It's logical. It makes sense.
yeah, that's worth noting right now that there's if you're looking at your printable at home calendar, that it didn't show up on the Montreal website today. And then shortly after that, 8 days of no league games, we have Super Bowl weekend, February 13th, 14th, which is always back-to-back afternoon games, so that you can go to a hockey game in the early afternoon, finish that, go straight to the bar and watch a Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
they're 1 o'clock games in Montreal. The Rangers and the Capitals are in town for that one. So a couple Metro Division teams. And then our last home game, no joke, April 1st.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at that right now against the Rangers.
Yeah, that's another Ranger one. And then we finish our season with 4 games on the road. April 10th is our last game against the Senators.
Yeah. So if you look at the schedule, I was just wanting to mention, like I said, or you said, sorry, the last 4 games, Sunday, April 4th against the Islanders, that Tuesday, the 6th, Florida, the 8th, Tampa, the 10th, Ottawa. I think that's them 2 Florida games, Florida, Tampa, that's going to be, that's going to be a tough go. I'm hoping we're not going to be worrying about clinching a playoff spot by the time these games come.
Yeah, well, the Atlantic Division, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we haven't addressed that elephant in the room, but the Atlantic Division did get a little bit of this shakeup this offseason, right? Florida went out and tried to goon it up by getting the Ketchup brothers together. There's not 57 brain cells between those two idiots. But when they dial in, they can play hockey. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to get done, and they can do that.
And then, if they got their head in the right space.
Yeah. They still have, and they still have Bennett, they still have Verhage, and they had all year last year without Barkov, so he's back. They've made some moves, right? But Bobrovsky isn't there. Markstrom's in net. Maybe they want Monty back. I don't know if they got another goalie, but they can have him back for a slushy machine. Or if they have a working ice cream machine from McDonald's in the area, they can ship that up there.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a tough go. Do I see Montreal getting 100 points this year? Yeah, I do, because I think we're that good of a hockey club. I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah, so I mean, we played 10 back-to-backs. That's 20 games of an 84 game season. So 25% of our games come in back-to-backs. That's a workload, but I'm gonna guess that a lot of teams are up against that number anyways. Traditionally, the Western teams don't get as many because they have way more travel. We have more local teams in the East. So our road trips can be back to back. And that's like Vancouver flying out to Winnipeg for a game and then into St. Louis for a game. I mean, they do more than that. We do back to backs. So, and they're going against multiple time zones, and we play traditionally in 1 or 2 for most of our games. So, there are extenuating circumstances and variables that a lot of people don't weigh in adequately, but, at the end of the day, I know what's going to happen, we have March 9th and 10th and the 27th, 28th. So we'll have 2 more back-to-backs in March, and that could be where things are won and lost. And you just hope you're not hurt and banged up and tired and those things that we're complaining about. But understand it now, people, we have 10 of them.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to dive deep enough into the schedule to see where there might be, a real tough stretch of games or a tough team?
And we can talk about that in the next episode when I start to look at who we play in stretches. Do we play Toronto, Florida, Tampa, then Boston? And you're like, we could go 0 for 4 on this road trip, or we can go 4-0 and really cement ourselves. But there's always going to be that stretch of a Western swing through. And, last year the West wasn't as strong as they have been in years past. So, you maybe get, last year we got Edmonton on a downturn when they came in through town. It doesn't mean it's an easier game when you have McDavid and Draisaitl there, because they can single-handedly win games. But you hope that the West is no stronger, and when that swing comes through, and the same thing, we usually have trouble in our Western road trip where we go up through Anaheim, San Jose, and LA.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I think Anaheim can, or San Jose could dress 12 kids from the Boys and Girls Club, and they still beat us. So
Yeah.
it just it's something that we're going to have to get dialed in, but time will tell.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to our final thoughts. What do you want to end it off with today?
Well, final thoughts. As much as we didn't make a bunch of moves, I'm happy with what we did because we talked about the Dobish signing. We talked about the Kirby Dach signing. Arbor Jacki is still not signed. Am I worried that he's going to go elsewhere? No, I think it's just a matter of he wants to be here. Is his agent trying to push for a 4-year deal and Montreal wants to give him a 1 year? Something's going to shake down here soon. I don't think we're letting him walk away for nothing.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, I think we would have told him, go find another deal, or he would have been traded for unground coffee beans somewhere. So I think he's coming back, but we also haven't talked about the other major move that Montreal made, and we locked up Ivan Demidov on an 8-year deal at $9.125 million. That is half the money that Leo Carlsson got. We don't want to really talk about that. But we have done our due diligence to sign guys and keep them within a salary range that gives us flexibility and gives us protection. We talked about that before. Asset management is huge. So does it seem like an overpay when Demidov's had 1 full year and got 66 points and we're paying him $9 million?
Yeah.
Well, Trevor Zegras got that today. He got $9.125 million and he got it for 4 years. We got Demidov locked in for 8.
Yeah.
And there's not too many NHL general managers that are going to look at the two players and pick Zegras over Demidov every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've got a core of guys, but when you lock all these guys up with Slavkovsky and Caulfield and Suzuki and, Hudson and Dobson, and you start adding those guys at term, there isn't many moves that you can make to bring in just guys because.
Yeah.
But what it does show is that guys have wanted to be here. They're willing to take, per se, the hometown discount. The American kids want to be here. They're not thinking that, we have to get back to the land of the Orange Man. They want to be here because the culture presents themselves an opportunity. That opportunity is to be competitive, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, for 6 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing for any team to do in a salary cap. We haven't done that. We haven't set ourselves up for that failure. We've built the culture. And that has to be the bigger sign moving forward that we are going down the right path. If opportunity presents itself, we have $9 million in cap space. 1 or 2 deals could be done, and then next thing you know, we're all in and we're ready to rock and roll. So, I like what we did. I like where we didn't give it away, throwing away 2 picks, 3 picks, 1 player, 4 players to try and hit a home run. That wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I respect them holding true to value of what they have and what they don't have and what somebody else could offer. So, it's frustrating to a minor degree, but the business side of sport is about winning long-term wise. Teams aren't great if they win 1 year and then don't make the playoffs for 5. That's called Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Overshoot their load because they got McKenna and then they back to playing in the parade with a few moves to me that don't necessarily make sense, but I don't know. But
yeah, well, let's be honest. They draft McKenna. They knew they were going to draft McKenna. They already had talks to try and get Bobrovsky. That was already a foregone conclusion. They let McKenna skate in a preseason rookie camp wearing the number 72. There's all kinds of idiots walking around with number 72 jerseys on, and now McKenna's going to wear 92.
92, yeah.
They can't even get that right.
Yeah. Final thoughts for me. I think I pretty much agree with you. I'm glad they didn't make a move for making a move's sake. I'm glad that they're not listening to the overzealous fans or media pundits who are supposed to be the experts. Kent Hughes is a lot smarter than that. Am I disappointed a move wasn't made? Yes, I'm disappointed. I think we all are, and I think it's a little bit, it's fair. I don't think it's unrealistic. But I also got to mention that, like you brought up the Drouin deal. these teams are calling looking for Hage and Zarowski, right? And when those two names are taken off the boards, the teams are going somewhere else. Well, you're begging for a trade, but if you trade Hage or Zarowski, you're going to want to crucify Kent Hughes because he traded Hage or Zarowski. You can't have it both ways. It's only got to, it's got to make sense. It's got to be a trade that makes sense. I don't mind overpaying to make a move, but
when
there's
it's
an
the right.
overpay limit, right? So, I still think there's a lot of time yet before the season starts. Things can happen, moves can be made. And I guess it's just a wait and see. I'm excited for the upcoming season, building off of the great season we had last year. Our players are only developed that much more because they got that year of experience. They got that good playoff run that can only make them a better player, that can make them better teams. But it also, I think the most important part is it gives them that drive of what could have been or some unfinished business. I think they're going to want it even more knowing how close they got last year. So I
Yeah.
think that's it. Final thoughts for me is just the
Mo-
anticipation of the upcoming year.
right. Motivation goes a long way in preparation.
Mhm.
So, nobody likes to lose and nobody likes to get that close and lose. So they'll have an axe to grind, be motivated to do it. And the preparation and doing that in a long season for these young kids will be monumental. So, I'm with you there.
Yeah. What do we have for our trivia
Trivia.
answer? Yeah.
Trivia. Well, here's the thing. If you know you got to serve 20 years and you have to serve the full 20 or wait for the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup, take 20 years. Call it a deal.
Yeah. 20 years because they're on
68 now. So,
yeah,
you know,
68. Yeah. You could have got 3.5 sentences. Okay, so be wise. Don't bet on the Leafs. Regardless of who they signed, it's not happening. This isn't their year. They're planning the parade now, but they'll be canceling it by January, I'm sure. Uh,
before then.
yeah. Thanks for watching. Again, apologize for such a long go in between. Um, but there's a lot going on. Again, upcoming season, look forward. Again, thanks for watching. Hit share, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Help us with our numbers. And as Steve always says,
Keep your stick on the ice.